Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching a clip from the Sideline podcast. If you're interested in watching the full show, head over to Spotify and whilst you're there, leave a 5-star review. It would be very much appreciated. But for now, enjoy this little segment.
The first question I really want to ask, obviously, it's great having two Everton fans on. Are you actually going to stay up then? Are you going to be here next season?
You can't
I know you don't want to predict and you don't want to jinx it, but will you be in the Premier League next season?
You know what's bad? If you would have asked me that when Leeds were 1-0 up before, I'd have said no, because it would have meant that Leeds would have only have needed to match our result next week and they would have been safe. But the landscape changes so much over the course of what was 70, 80 minutes of football that now, barring, as I said, an absolute miracle by Leicester tomorrow, which will be a miracle, by the way, not only because of how good Newcastle have been and how good Newcastle have been at home, but Leicester have been so poor recently. And if Leicester are to lose tomorrow, which is, of course, the expectation, then it would mean that I think we only have to match Leeds' result next week, which, again, as Kieran quite rightly said, you would look at on paper and think Bournemouth at home, Bournemouth have got nothing to play for, they're safe, Goodison Park, last game of the season, it'll be booming. But, I remember playing Bournemouth at home a number of years ago, and on the last day of the season, and they beat us 3-1, and they were already relegated at the time, and we had nothing to play for, so it's not an easy game by any sense of the imagination. Everton have lost 10 home games this season, by the way, and okay, we've lost one to Manchester City, which is fine. Everybody loses to Manchester City, but the other games, again, Newcastle you could question, but other than that, there's been a lot of winnable games in there that we've lost. Teams like Southampton have come to Goodison and beaten us. Villa come at a time where they were in bad form and beat us as well. So, whilst on paper it looks like it's still in Everton's hands, to be honest, mate, I'm absolutely astonished that it is still in Everton's hands. I think we could quite be the luckiest team in the league this season, in the sense that if we are to go down, we've gone down because we absolutely deserve to go down. And I don't mean we as the Evertonians, I mean the board and the people in charge. So the fact that we're even in a position where we could stay up on the final day is quite baffling to me. But, if Leicester are to lose tomorrow, then it's firmly within our hands, and I don't want to say whether we will or we won't, because that 90 minutes next Sunday it will be absolutely horrific.
I do agree with what you're saying, though. I feel like if Everton do stay up, it is mainly because there's been three teams who have just been so much worse.
Yeah.
And again, it's nothing against Everton. I've said to Kieran, I've said on the podcast before, like, I really like Everton. Huge club, should definitely be in the Premier League. I don't want to see them in the Championship, but just taking kind of an Everton perspective away and outside looking in, if you do stay up, it is mainly because there's been three teams who were just even, like, it was just much worse than you guys, which is crazy to think, because, like, you just mentioned some results there against Southampton. Kieran mentioned about the aggregate against Bournemouth. It's crazy listening to stats like that and thinking it's still in your own hands. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Kieran, what do you think? Do you think you'll stay up?
So yeah, again, when Leeds scored, I were 100% all the way through. They've had points through the season, and I think after I know it was very early on in the season, but when we lost against Brighton at Goodison, I were numb to relegation now, expecting it. I don't want to get emotionally attached again because I'm expecting it. But with results under Sean Dyche that we've picked up, it's not been 100%. I've got strong opinions on Dyche, and we'll see what happens at the end of the season. But I were expecting us to go down, but some results, especially Arsenal, the Brighton game, which was very unexpected. Everyone said that. I've got belief now, and I think this is what's going to kill me.
It's going to hurt now you've got belief. It's going to hurt
having
now
belief as an Everton fan. It's two things that shouldn't go together. Belief and an Everton fan, it shouldn't go together. It's hard, but...
To be fair, I've asked you both the same question there, and you've both been very hesitant to say you're going to stay up. So I'm going to be the positive one, and I'm going to say I think Everton will stay up. Okay, I hope I haven't jinxed it, and if you do go down, you can blame me completely. But to be fair, out of the teams down there, out of them three, out of Leeds, Leicester and Everton, I want Everton to stay up. So I'm going to say we're going to stay up. If you do stay up, then what's the way forward? I mean, there's two kind of things I'd really like to ask you in terms of, will you be in a relegation battle again next year? I know there's ownership stuff getting mentioned, and it's kind of in the press at the moment. And also, if you do stay up, is Sean Dyche given a chance with a pre-season and at the start, or do you change again and go for a different approach?
I think the question on Dyche is hard because it's just can we really afford to pay him off for his last 2 year that he's got left, depending on whether we decide to extend his contract any further. So it's paying that off. It's who's going to come in for Dyche. Are we going to get anyone better? Are we going to get further worse than Dyche? It's just, I think Dyche has potential with the way he sets up and what he does, but some of his decision making to say he goes back to the basics of football, playing Mason Holgate as a left back. Yeah, we've not got the depth in those areas, but Holgate, that's been horrendous, hasn't had one good performance since possibly when he got put into midfield against Manchester United seasons ago. It's them decisions that make me question, and then especially substitutions, we wait till 80th minute to bring on Neil Maupay, that Yeremina has scored more goals than him this season, rather than Ellis Sims that scored possibly one of our most important goals in the goal against Chelsea. To me, DCL is our most important player in terms of going forward. Ellis Sims is the closest we can get to that. But yet we bring on more pain, still don't change the system. We seem to put more crosses into the box with more pace. So, I mean, I've gone off the rant's been building up, but personally, I think we have to take the risk and go away from Dyche, because I think if we stick with Dyche, obviously this is just disregarding what happens next season in terms of the punishment or anything like that. I see it's been another relegation battle next season if we stick with Dyche.
Oh,
that's my honest opinion.
Sam?
I think it's a really difficult one, to be honest. I think if he's to keep Everton up, he probably will be given the opportunity to go into the pre-season and, you know, start next season. And in all honesty, I wouldn't have too much of an issue with it, because when he come in, you know, we were in such a bad position, and there's been numerous times this season where I felt like we were completely done and dusted, and, you know, it's very comparable to last season, and obviously the sense of that we are where we are in the table, and it's going down to, you know, the penultimate game of the season, the final game of the season, but it's also not comparable because last season we had a goal scorer in Richarlison who won us a number of games single-handedly. Last season we had an atmosphere within the fan base that was very much, hang on, what are we doing here? We've got it all, get behind the players, coach greetings at Finch Farm, atmosphere was booming, the players were responding to that. It was all very new, and therefore there was a massive reaction to it. This season we haven't got the goal scorer in Richarlison, and we haven't got a goal scorer. Our goal scorer has been out pretty much all season with an injury and could be out for the final game of the season, and the fans haven't reacted in the same way because of what happened last season. It's not new now. It's not a case of, oh my God, what are we doing here? We've got to do something to get us out of it. It's like, well, hang on, why are we here for the second season on the bounce? Who is responsible for that? Why we need to move those people that are responsible for that out of the football club? And it's a much less emotional time, I think, in the sense of that. Look, we're all very emotional, obviously, and if we are to go down, it'll be a heartbreaking day. But, you know, it's not as sort of, you know, blue flare and greeting the coach as it was last season. It's more, certainly for me, I look at it and I've sort of resigned to the idea that Everton will be relegated. So I don't think, whereas last season when we were safe, there was a pitch invasion, and if we'd have been relegated, it would have been absolute mania. This season, if we beat Bournemouth and stay up on Sunday, I won't be running on the pitch. I won't be screaming and shouting. I won't be, you know, over the moon like I was last season. I'll just be very much a few. We've got away with one there. Change has to be made. And if we go down, I think I'll be very similar. It'll be a case of, well, this is our own fault. I expect this. And as we said before, the fact Everton are still within a chance of staying in the Premier League at this point is quite baffling, considering some of the results this season and the fact that we haven't had a goal scorer all season. In terms of the manager, I think this Sunday is the manager's biggest opportunity now. If Everton go out and win, the likelihood is we'll be a Premier League team next season. I can't see Leicester winning 2 games on the bounce, and that is the manager's job, to go and gear them players up to be able to go out and win that game. If we don't win, again, Keenan talks about the finances of the situation, and that obviously is a completely different topic and a completely different issue. But personally, I would move him on if we go down. I would, because I just think some of the decisions, and I do. There is an element of me that feels a little bit sorry for Sean Dyche. Yesterday, for example, I know he will have gotten a lot of stick, but yesterday at times we saw Michael Keane playing right back, which is just absolutely baffling. We saw Mason Holgate play there at times this season, but there was an element of me that felt a little bit sorry for Sean Dyche, because he lost his goal scorer and let's be honest, our best player, I don't care what anybody says, in Dominic Calvert-Lewin, our most effective player, and our right back, to the point where he was having to bring players on that didn't fit into the team, didn't fit into the formation, but had to be brought on because of injuries. What I don't feel sorry for him is the persistence to play Michael Keane over Yerry Mina for the first 3 months of his time at the football club, when, as Kieran quite rightly says, Yerry Mina now has scored more goals than one of our centre forwards in 6 games than he scored all season. I think he scored the same as Dominic Calvert-Lewin in that period as well. But not just that. For me, it's baffling. Everybody, I'm sure you'll be able to tell us as a non-Evertonian, but every Evertonian could tell you Yerry Mina is a much better defender than Michael Keane. It's as simple as that. He was colossal yesterday, even defensively, even without the goal, he was a colossal defender. He's just a much better defender, and the persistence to play Michael Keane, for me, is a decision that if Everton to go down, I think is sackable on its own. But in terms of will we be in next season, I hope not. But the reality is wholesale changes need to be made. If Everton go down, wholesale changes will be made. Most of the playing squad will move on, or certainly those, your Jordan Pickfords, your Dominic Calvert-Lewins, your Amadou Onanas will move on. If we're to stay up, there still needs to be change made. The biggest thing Everton did wrong this season is sort of look at last season as an anomaly and think, oh, well, that won't happen again because we don't do relegation battles. Didn't make any changes. It got worse by selling our best player and not replacing them, and then sit here and wonder why we're in the same position. Well, no, changes need to be made regardless of whether we stay up or go down. We know the chairman's time is done. We know the board of directors, most of them are done now. The owner, for me, is done, and I think he knows that. And to be honest, with the media, it looks like we're going to get a full takeover, and that might be the best thing that happens to us. It might be the worst thing that happens to us, but it can't get much worse than what it is now. And I think that will happen regardless of our league position. But it should have happened 12 months ago when we barely survived last season, and it still might be too late. We can sit here all we like and say, Leeds have lost, so we're only relying on Leicester. But who thought that Everton would turn up at Brighton and beat them 5-1? Nobody. Yeah. So Leicester could very easily turn up at St James's Park and win tomorrow, and then it all goes out the window. Then Leicester have got a home game against West Ham, who will be preparing for a final at that point. So that could, again, if Leicester wins 2 on the bounce, we're down anyway. So, yeah, will we be here next season? I hope not. But if we don't make the changes that are necessary in the boardroom, then yes, we will be. If we go down, does Dyche stay? I think he probably stays either way because of the finances, but I wouldn't keep him if we go down. If we do stay up, I think he will stay on for a bit. Will he last the whole season? We don't know. Plus, also, you have to think about the new owners coming in. If new owners come in, then they could look at him and go, well, he's not our man. So we want our man in there. So regardless of whether you've stayed up or not, we want our manager in there. So yeah, terrible time to be an Evertonian.
It's interesting actually. You said a couple of things there. The first one was, you didn't say you were numb, but it came across like, and I think Kieran said this as well about supporting Everton this season, that it is that feeling of like he's obviously still caring, you're still very passionate, and you want Everton to do nothing but well. But you are a little bit numb to the fact that if you go down, it's almost like deserved, or it's almost justification to the fans that the owner is as bad as kind of what everybody sees it as, which is quite sad. But I can relate as well. I said when Newcastle went down the first time and Mike Ashley, etc.,